Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Barely Bookish podcast. Today, we are finishing up Kindred. Well, I think we're going to finish up Kindred. It might end up being multiple episodes, depending on how long we talk. So, maybe. A firm maybe. But I am joined once again with Candace.
Hi.
I'm excited.
Me too.
God, there's a lot.
There's a lot, and it's very heavy, but that's okay.
Yep.
That's all right. We're going to get through it together.
I know. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I have many things I want to talk about. But we're going to just jump right in because I feel like that's the best way to do this.
Dear reader, Rachel texted me and was like, "Oh, this fucking book, man.
Mm-hmm.
What is up with this book?
Mm-hmm.
The ending!" And with like 7 exclamation marks. And I just had to write back, LOL.
Yep. I read it like right after. Like I literally had other recordings I needed to read for. And I was like, Like I had two on the day we were supposed to record, I had 2 scheduled recordings. I had this and I was recording Peter Pan the morning of.
Mm-hmm.
Usually my rule of thumb is that I read the first reading that I have due first.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
After we got done with our recording, I was like, I simply cannot wait. I must read this now.
Yeah.
So therefore, I read it because I had to. And I was like, I'll just read a little bit. Like, I'm going to bed. I'll just read a little bit. And then you always say that. And then you're like 7 a.m. and the sun's coming up in the sky. And you're like, oh my God.
Oh no.
You know?
My life.
Yeah. So if the book didn't end, it would have been one of those nights for me. But luckily, the book, well, not luckily, because I was traumatized, but the book did end. And I had to. The worst part is then I was supposed to go to bed, and I just sat there.
Well, yeah, because you need a minute.
Yeah,
you gotta let it breathe.
Yeah, I opened TikTok up, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll just relax for a couple minutes.
Are there some fun things that I could look at?
I know. I was like, I literally
videos, maybe
before I started the epilogue too. I was like, I'm like looking at my cat. My cat's just like.
I have a lot of feelings about it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But we'll go ahead and get started because there's nothing worse than saying we're having feelings and not talking about those feelings. That's
true.
This chapter is titled The Rope. Terrifying.
Ominous.
To
say the least.
Oh my God. I was like, I saw that chapter title and I was like, oh, they know 1 chapter's left and they're going to let us have it.
Yeah. Yep.
So Dana makes it home and Kevin's patching her up. Wait. Okay, hold on. I got so confused because I forgot where this chapter like left off.
Oh yeah, she cuts her wrists.
Yes.
Yes.
So basically patching, I thought we were at the end and I was like, I need to double check myself before I say what I was about to say. So yeah, at this point she had patched herself. She had like cut herself to get back. She was passed out when she arrived, which is like lucky she arrived at all.
Yeah.
And so Kevin, because he, I guess, cares about his wife, but also is an absolute moron, brings her to a doctor. And like the doctor was like, she needs to see a psychiatrist.
So like, I think like, so he tries to justify it by going, oh, it's like Louis, that guy that we know, like he's my friend. But at the same time, she's now getting like he's getting a third party involved. And like, it's funny because I feel like he doesn't really think, despite having been through this life-changing experience, right? Despite having been left in the past for 5 years, right? This man comes back and displays an incredible amount of know-nothingness that is just mind-boggling, right?
I know.
So, like, knowing that there's no explanation for this, knowing that she doesn't want to tell anybody, knowing she doesn't want to leave the house, knowing she doesn't want to be around people, he allows this person to come into their home and then assess her, look at her wrists, and now they're friends. Like, they're like, every time that she sees him in the future, he's gonna think that she tried to kill herself. Like, every time, like, he's like, there needs to be a reason for this man, you know what I'm saying? And I'm sure they're like, we don't owe him anything, obviously, but like, friends talk. Like, that's a pretty big red flag that this person now thinks she has on her. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, and that really sucks because she's a very, like, it's pretty clear that Dana's a very private person.
Well, it's like the
Um,
thing too is like it doesn't seem like he tried to
yep.
patch her up either.
Yeah.
Like the doctor literally said it was like a shallow wound. Like it's more so probably scared her than anything else.
Yeah.
Like she
So he
didn't
didn't
hit.
even try.
Yeah,
He didn't even look.
because it's like realistically that means that if it was shallow on your wrist, like you could probably just hold something to it and see that the bleeding's stopping, and then you could just bandage her up.
Yeah. And like I'm sure that part of that is like the nervous husband, right? Like the
Mhm.
scared partner, whatever. But again, like he could have found other ways
Yeah.
to do that without like betraying her trust. And like I really hate that like she wakes up, right? She's obviously been through an ordeal. When
Mhm.
someone has tried to kill themselves and you know that they're in the past and they're a black person and they're going back to slavery times and then
Mhm.
they come to present times and their wrists are cut, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, what were you trying to
Yeah.
do? How could you
Literally.
try to kill yourself? I'd be like, this seems like a completely rational reaction
Yeah.
to
I'd be
some
like,
fucked
okay.
up terror that you have experienced in your
Mhm.
past. What happened this time? Like, I'd want to
Yeah.
know what happened to you last time. Why was this your reaction? Why was this your
Mhm.
response? What got so dire that this was your last ditch effort? Instead, this motherfucker looks at her, excuse me for my very salty language,
No, he deserves it.
but this man looks her dead in her face and is like, why the hell did you cut your wrists? So, like, demanding to know
Mhm.
why she cut her wrists. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
use your brain. You were there. Like, there are
Yeah.
any number of reasons
He's
why
acting like he
she could
didn't
have cut
experience
her
it.
wrists. Like, this I'm saying. He learned absolutely nothing. He was there for 5 years. Like, I know last time we were talking about, like, you know, oh, Kevin, like, when he was back in time, you know, he was an abolitionist. He helped free slaves. Like, he saw some real terrible things. Like, when
Mhm.
they first got home, he was real shook. He, like, couldn't, like, unravel himself, right? So he's had all this time.
Mhm.
3 weeks, I think she had been gone. We find out, right, that she had been
Yeah.
away for no, she had been away for 3 hours.
Mhm.
So he had like at least a little bit of time to
Mhm.
like shave, to take a shower, to ease back in. He couldn't drive.
But they were home for like 3 weeks.
Right. So at this
Yeah.
point, yeah, like so after this, he's home for 3 weeks. And even then,
Mhm.
I feel like he doesn't learn anything. Like he never really truly sits with it and tries to genuinely understand what happened to
Mhm.
his wife. Like he's still not processing it. And in my mind, I'm just like, you know, like I see a lot of parallel
Mhm.
between the increase in Rufus's kind of hubris, the testing of boundaries,
Mhm.
and the meanness that he exhibits, like how it kind of starts to go up on this kind of slope, like this like heavy incline upward.
Mhm.
And I feel like with Kevin, like he's almost on the same chart, but for blindness. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like he should be seeing more and more and more and learning more and
Yeah.
more and more, but like he doesn't change at all despite what's happening in his life and around him. And I feel like that's very much a parallel for Rufus, because like Rufus doesn't learn anything really so far. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's why she has to leave the way she leaves, because like he's resistant to change and to trying to understand, you know, how to be a better person. And like it's
Mhm.
very shocking to see that parallel there between him and Rufus. It's gross.
It is gross. And it's just like it's and the thing that also bothers me is we still don't know what happened between Kevin and Rufus.
Nope.
And we never get to.
Nope.
And then so Dana talks about how she was talking with Carrie. He calls Carrie the R word.
He sure does.
For what?
He sure
Like,
does, because she's mute, and he
mhm,
assumes that because she cannot speak, she
mhm,
must have less mental value, that it's a mental issue rather than
mhm,
her just being a mute. But that's what I'm saying. Like he's just like fine making assumptions and stereotypes about people. Like he's fine with that. And like the other thing that I think is really interesting too is that it almost punctuates the difference in their experiences, right?
mhm,
Because you've got her referring to Carrie on a first name basis. You know what I'm saying? Like she's like,
mhm.
"Oh yeah, well when Carrie did this, she's talking to him in conversation, right?
Yeah.
He was there for 5 years. She by the end of this was there for maybe a year
Yeah.
cumulatively. He spent 5 times longer than her in this
Mhm.
world, and has no idea who Carrie is, because why would he? She was just a slave girl in the house that didn't talk.
Yeah.
Why would he know who she is? Why would he have familiarized himself? He thinks he's
Yeah.
so above it all, but he didn't even see them as people.
And that's like, to me, that also just like shows their experience. Like, he had such a privileged experience. Like, sure, he
Yep.
had to like pee in the woods, but like, she literally was doing backbreaking labor. He was like teaching school children. Like, it was
Yep.
not that different from his
No.
normal everyday life. And he's traumatized. Like sure, okay, everybody has different levels of trauma, but like the way he reacts when he gets back to the modern period is like he acts like it's her fault a
Yeah.
little bit. And then like he makes everything about himself, where she's literally like at this point willing to risk death to get out of there. And
Yep.
it's like their experience is nowhere near, like not even remotely the same.
Nope, not even close. And that's what I'm saying. Like, just it's a shock to the system.
Hmm.
And I think that the fact that like this shock is happening, right? That she's in this place where she's like back home. She even says about her bed, she wakes up on something incredibly soft, impossibly soft, right?
Hmm.
Like, it's a regular ass bed in 1976. It's not some
Yeah.
Tempur-Pedic luxury Cadillac bed. It's like a regular old spring mattress, right?
Hmm.
But like to her, it's like paradise, because she's been literally sleeping on Margaret Whalen's floor
Hmm.
for 8 months, right? So, she's going through all of these like tangible changes. She now has scars on her wrist. Like, her body has changed. She has scars
Hmm.
on her back. Like, all that happened to Kevin is he's got like this salt and pepper hair that's a little bit more salted and peppered than it was before. And
Yeah.
he's got, some deeper lines in his face or whatever, right? And
Yeah.
I feel like he has the option of allowing himself to be changed by it,
Hmm.
whereas she does not. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a larger statement on slavery in America, right? Like, white people have the option to hear these slave narratives, read these slave
Hmm.
narratives, read books like this, right, which are like, obviously like postmodern explorations of slavery,
Hmm.
and a kind of like genre bending, if you will,
Hmm.
right, reimaginings. Um, there's the opportunity to deal with and interact with and be educated by these pieces of media, or
Hmm.
stay away. You don't have to be changed by these things. When I
Hmm.
read Frederick Douglass, and his autobiography, when I read, like slave narratives, or anything like that, like, I'm changed by that. Like, it
Hmm.
changes my day. It changes how I feel. Like, you and I have had to reschedule this call because
Hmm.
I had a very racially taxing experience on Twitch, right? Like, that
Hmm.
really messed with me. And I knew that I needed to really show up for this book
Hmm.
and be whole in my mind and in my heart to be able to come and talk to you about this. And I just was not in a right place. Like, I was not in a good state of mind.
Hmm.
And, like, I can't choose to not be changed by racism. I can't choose to not be changed by the disgusting history of our country, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't like, opt out, unsubscribe.
Yeah.
Can't
Actually,
do
I
that.
don't want this newsletter, please. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'd rather just like be able to like, drive past a police officer and not get scared. That seems like I'd want to do that instead. Like, it's not a
Hmm.
choice. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's a combination of my own experiences and what I've seen other people that look like me go through online, right? Or
Hmm.
in the news. Or even word of mouth through my family.
Yeah.
And I have cops in my family. So like, it's a double-edged sword there for real. And
Scary.
yeah, and I think that, like, this is like the ultimate testament to that. And like, and that's what I'm saying about Butler. She so deftly kind of inserts this. She
Hmm.
like paints the inside of it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna
Hmm.
leave this here for you. Just kind of like leaves you this little mural
Yeah.
inside of like, it's like a geode.
Hmm.
It's like a real cool rock, and then you crack it open, and you're like, oh snap! Look at this inside.
Yeah.
Whoo,
You're like, oh wow, there's so much
oh
in
boy.
here.
Yeah, because like, again, I mean, she's with him and she loves him in spite of his like bullshit. And man, there's a lot of bullshit.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But I feel like that says more about her than it says about him, especially in this moment.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so then Kevin says he basically wants Dana to kill Rufus, but he like can't say the words. He's like, "You should really wink, wink, nudge, nudge, if you know what I mean."
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah.
very like, and then she's like, "How do you expect me to do it if you can't even talk about it?" And I was like, "You go, girl."
I mean, like, I'm glad that that's like the first time she is like able to like really check him on his bullshit.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I'm just like,
Kill Rufus.
Like he's just like pushing her and pushing her. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like she's like, "Oh, let me explain to you like why I didn't make my move earlier." Because like we see this, right? Like
Mhm.
we see her like think about killing him. Like she like arms herself with the sleeping pills, almost tells him to take some. Like there are
Mhm.
moments where she has him in a place where she could have exploited that weakness, right? She could have left him to
Mhm.
die in the puddle, but she doesn't, right? And what sucks is that she knows that he also knows that
Mhm.
she's not going to kill him, right? But as time goes by, more moments present themselves, and I think
Yeah.
he recognizes that.
Mhm.
And I think that Kevin is like Kevin still sees him as a child, right?
Yeah.
And he, even though he knows he's a grown man now, like he still understands him as like having this very kind of like infantilized kind of like
Mhm.
thought process in mind, right? He doesn't recognize that he has turned into the man of the house, right?
Mhm.
Whereas Dana is like, you have no idea who I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Like you have no idea who I'm dealing with. And during this time, it's not even like she's explaining exactly what happened, right? Like she
Mhm.
hasn't talked to him about the time she spent with the overseer. She hasn't talked to him about, you know, the conversation she had with Alice and like their very
Mhm.
tenuous relationship. Clearly she hasn't talked to him about Sarah and Carrie,
Yeah.
right? So like he doesn't have the intellectual capacity to understand why she wouldn't have already killed Rufus. Like to me
Mhm.
there's no question, especially because if you kill him while you're back there, who's to say you're actually going home?
Yeah.
You might just be stuck.
That's what she's talking about too.
Yeah. So like it's just interesting how he like expects her
Mhm.
to lay herself on the line and put
Mhm.
herself out there to like save other people, but he can't even like be bothered to get to know the enslaved people that are helping take care of him while he lives there.
Literally. Like
Like
he
why is this her burden alone?
I know. And it's like he cares about Dana and nobody else that lives there, which is
Yeah.
fine. Like I guess like it's your wife, you care about her first.
Yeah, but I mean like you're not going to tell me that your partner has never heard my name come out of your mouth. If you were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, Candace and I were talking," he wouldn't be like, "Candace question mark?"
Yeah. And it's
Oh,
like,
the mute girl. I thought she was R word. Like,
well, I
what?
know. And it's like the other thing too is like he does not care about the livelihoods of everybody else. Like,
Yeah,
it's like killing Rufus is something that like you cannot do lightly because it's going to drastically affect every single other person that lives
absolutely.
their life there. And that's what Dana's thinking about. And he's like, just like kill him and they can figure it out because he doesn't care about them.
Yeah. And like even like the little bits, like he gives me like maximum like woke white guy vibes.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, you know, they're not just gonna like sell her by herself. They're gonna sell her with her children."
No.
Talking about Carrie. Oh, they'd sell her with her children. Um, and they probably wouldn't bother to like sell her husband with her. They would probably just try to like breed her with somebody else. It is breeding, you know. As though she like doesn't know that like white people at that time think of black people as little more than animals, right?
Yeah.
Like he's like, "I don't know if you know this or not, but it's breeding." And she's like, that's exactly what you call mating two people against their will or two
Yeah.
creatures against their will. Like, why are you reminding me of that? And why are you using that terminology? You know what I'm saying? Like, why
Literally.
is that? Like, it's so impersonal. Like, it's
Mhm.
so, you know what I mean? Like, it's like he's talking about animals. And granted, yes, like the people in that time period did feel that way, but he's in 1976
Mhm.
talking about breeding.
Yeah.
And like that moment, like I had ice in my veins, man. It was gross.
I know. I just the worst part too is just like it felt like he was it's like okay, I don't know. It felt like when he was doing like the abolitionist movement, he was doing it because he felt like he had to,
Yeah.
not because he actually cared about the people he was helping.
Yes, he felt like this is wrong blanket statement. I've got to
Mhm.
fix it and I've
Yeah.
got to do something while I'm here
Mhm.
rather than this is wrong, this is upsetting, this is sad. I need to
Mhm.
really help these people. I need to learn their stories. I need to
Mhm.
figure out what they're going through. Like
Yeah.
he has like no new education and that just is, you know. I mean, I'm glad that Dana at least like, you know, she says like, you know, not to try to like move ahead, but like she says like we had 15 days together, right?
Yeah. That was my next note anyways.
I was really hoping that she was going to be like in those 15 days. I learned so much about my partner and we had so much time to discuss our respective stories and,
Mhm.
you know, talk whatever. No, they spend the entire time trying to readjust to the 20th century.
Yeah.
And like I get it, like nobody knows what the other knows. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That's something that will probably link them forever and will probably, cause her to like never ever leave him because nobody
Yeah.
knows what she's been through like him and that's something that she's going to keep kind of like ironed on her for the rest of her life.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's still, it almost paints her into a corner a little bit more now because there's only one person that could understand her now. Like she's even more boxed into him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's like the thing that bothers me too. We're gonna hold on, we'll get into it. But
Mm-hmm.
next, also in that 15-day period, Dana's cousin came, the same cousin
Mm-hmm.
that like discovered her bruises and everything.
Yeah.
Um and immediately noticed the changes in Kevin's
Mm-hmm.
and was like, he looks sick.
Yep.
He's
Something's wrong
not
with
looking
him.
well. And then also said that, asked if he ever hit her again. And she was
Yeah.
like, no.
Yeah. And like that's what's interesting too is like the difference in the judgment, right? So like you've got his friend that sees Dana, she attempted her own life, right? She
Mm-hmm.
put her hands on herself and this guy is like she needs to go to therapy.
Yeah.
Like no, something is wrong with her. This isn't okay. She's fucked
Mm-hmm.
up, right? But then you've got like Julie who's just like sometimes people get hit. Like she wants Dana to leave Kevin because she assumes that he's being abusive, but she like doesn't put her foot down. She's not
Yeah.
like in her face about it. She's not like, "Oh, I'm not coming over here ever again." She's not rude to him. She's not like getting involved in their business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just so interesting that like she didn't hurt anybody else. She only hurt herself, but now she's stamped and he appears to have hurt Dana and like so far it doesn't seem like there's really any ramifications. There's no lasting damage there. Like Julie even kind of seems concerned about whether or not he's all right. Like he seems, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like talking about how he looks and whatever. I found that very interesting that like she has to face more scrutiny for doing something to herself than
Yeah.
he has to face for
Beating her.
supposedly, you know,
Yeah.
doing something to her, which obviously we know he didn't,
Mm-hmm.
but the understanding is still there.
For sure. Also, Kevin's like convinced at this point that she's definitely not going back in time.
Yep.
And Dana's like, I don't trust it.
Yep. Yep. You're being overly cautious. You don't have to drag that thing around with you for 2 weeks. So, like, again, just more examples of how little this person has learned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have children that get into like traumatic incidents, right? They experience trauma and they might have like a special blanket or a special teddy bear or a special drink that they
Mm-hmm.
need to feel safe, right? That also happens when adults experience trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So, this woman has experienced all kinds of trauma in a very short amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's only been like what, like not even a month, I think, that she's been going back and forth, back and forth,
Yeah.
back and forth. It's just a long time in that land, right? And
Mm-hmm.
even then, it's still only a year
Mm-hmm.
cumulatively that she's there between going back in time and coming home, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it feels far longer than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like interesting to see that like he is so, you know, concerned with her bringing around a duffel bag, which is like, who cares if she's bringing a duffel bag? Some ladies' purses are that big. You know what I mean? Like,
Literally.
who cares if she has this duffel bag on her all the time? If it makes her feel safe, like, why are you criticizing her?
Mm-hmm.
She still doesn't feel safe going places, so it doesn't even matter. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, you need to just come back to life and forget all of this happened. You know what I mean? Like that idea of, and again, like I've gotten this from people too, like people that have, you know, asked me to talk to them about race, and then they go,
Mm-hmm.
well, why can't you just forget about it? Why can't you
Oh.
just move on?
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, well, every day when someone ultimately reminds me that I am a black person, um, that's me not forgetting about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if I wanted to forget about it, someone's still going to remind me. You don't have that happen to you because you're white. Nobody ever really makes you remember that you're white unless they're talking about their own non-white experience, right? For this
Mm-hmm.
person that was like talking to me about it, I was like, you know, you don't really know what that's like. But for me, I know what that's like multiple times a day, having somebody
Yeah.
remind you that you're different, right? And again, this is a man who has experienced that change, should have had that change leave an indelible mark on his person. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, obviously, you're not getting called back again. Just chill out. Why can't you just get back to life? Why is this still a big deal? Why are you bringing this up? Like, it's like that idea that like you're asking for trouble,
Mm-hmm.
or by taking a stand and trying to be prepared for something you feel is going to inevitably happen. They need to just chill out. Like it would be like if a man saw somebody carrying pepper spray and was like, "Hey, you don't need that. Like you're going to be fine. This is not a very like high crime area. Why do you feel like you need that?" Like why would you say that
Yeah.
to somebody? If that's what I need to feel safe, just shut up and let me have it. You know what I mean? Like
I saw that happen once. Like this girl was showing, I think it was I don't know. She's showing like her like self defense
Mm-hmm.
a company, and like a guy was commenting on it, and he said something like one, women don't need that,
That's
and then two, he's like, even if they did, it's not like it would really stop anything, and everyone's like,
read the room, dude.
yeah, right,
Read
like
the
it
room.
was like in the same comment too, and I was like, oh my god.
Ugh. Sometimes with these dudes,
Hmm.
sometimes, all right. I mean, whew.
Yeah, literally. Ugh.
So she's like justifying herself to him. They're having basically a full-on argument
Mhm.
about whether or not she needs to put the fucking suitcase down.
Yeah. And then he says she must be eager to go back because she's keeping it
Listen,
around. And I was like, at that point, my jaw hit the floor. That's
yo,
I
I
was
had to put the book down. I couldn't. I
I
almost stood
know.
up and walked out.
I literally like I do a lot of the time when I see things that just like jaw hit the floor.
Yep.
I pretend I'm on The Office and I look directly into the camera. And I do that so often that
Yeah.
I do that to people in real life. I pretend someone is that person. And people get really mad, uncomfortable about it, but I can't seem to stop it.
It's okay because I feel like Stanley Hudson is that person for me. Like he
Mhm,
just has like the most ridiculous reactions to things.
mhm.
So that's how I feel when someone says something crazy. I immediately feel like I give them the Stanley like face.
Yeah. Like, it was literally a moment where I looked up as if I was looking directly into a camera when I read that, and I was just like, "Are you serious right now?" Like, that to me just really proves that he has no idea or understanding of what her experience is like.
Listen, then he underscores it, right?
Mhm.
By trying to bring up what Rufus said to her when he was holding her at gunpoint, right? The
Yeah.
last time that he was there. He's talking about, oh, he said, you're not going to leave me. And she's like, okay, that's what he said. Yeah. And he's like, that's not right. She was like, I mean, it is right. That's exactly what he said. He's like, no, I mean, that's not right. Why would he say that to you? That's something
Mm,
I would say to you. And I'm like, exactly.
mhm. And then
I'm
he, like,
sitting here with the book, like, yeah, yeah. See,
yeah,
see it now. Do you? Do you
literally.
see it, you
And then
jerk?
he basically is like, "Well, did you have sex with him?" And she goes, "Do you mean was I raped by him?"
Listen,
You know?
I really, you know what?
Oh my god.
You know what, Rachel? Ooh,
That
ooh, ooh,
hit
ooh,
me because
ooh.
it's like, oh, you think she would have a choice or that that would be consensual?
Oh my god. And that she would call it sex.
Yeah. And he was
Listen.
like trying to like pry about this because he's like, I can't get it off my mind. And I'm
And he
like,
like he wouldn't even say it. That's what I'm saying. So this dude, right, wants to talk about freedom and talk about how he was an abolitionist for the 5 years he was in the past, right?
mm-hmm,
But he owns his wife.
mm-hmm,
You own your wife?
mm-hmm.
You're gonna tell your wife, I can't even say it. It makes me sick to think of you with someone else.
Literally.
Like, you can't even say it. What are you talking
Could you
about?
imagine? Could you imagine being with someone who is like a victim of that and they're gonna be like, I can't, like, you're not pure anymore. Like, I would kill someone.
He said that. I would forgive you.
I know.
She goes, forgive me for what?
Literally.
If that
Like,
had happened to you, I would have forgiven you. You would have
I
forgiven me for being
so
raped?
mad. I was
Listen.
so mad.
Oh my God. Furious.
Like,
Furious.
I can't
Still mad.
imagine thinking about that and
No.
like being like, yeah, but it's okay. Like, it's one, it's not okay because she had to live through this trauma, and now you're bringing it up by being like, oh, I'd forgive you. Like, you don't have to forgive her because it's not her fault. It is not her fault. You
No.
cannot sniff the camera, baby.
And like I think it's interesting that she avoids that because she
Mhm.
says, you'd forgive me if I were raped. And
Uh-huh.
he changes the subject and she allows him to.
I
Like he
know.
pivots and she allows it, right? Because this lady is so exhausted.
I know. I
This
just
lady is like beyond tired. She's like, can this just be over already? Because I really hate you when
yeah,
you're like this. And
literally.
like this whole experience has made you in a way that like I thought that you were above. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like she goes on in the beginning about how he's like above it all and how his sister's really terrible and he still married her in
Mhm.
spite of his sister's feelings and he like lost his family and how he like had these sacrifices that he did just for her. But at the same time, I think we know that it's not really that much of a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like it's not that much of a sacrifice. His sister sounds terrible. It sounds like he probably
Literally.
would have nixed her from his life anyway. You know what I mean?
I know. I just, oh my god. I was
Yeah.
so mad. I was so
Yeah.
mad while I was reading this part.
Yeah, I like, and then she tries to explain like how she's never going to be like Tess. How she's
Mhm,
like not going to be this person, and how like, you know,
mhm,
when Tess was sold, it was like a really big deal, and
mhm.
he like can't even understand what she's talking about with Tess because he doesn't know that Tess was used by Tom Whalen.
Yeah.
Like,
And
where
then
was he
he
for
also
5 years, man?
literally, it's like
Where
he
was
wasn't
he?
paying attention to anybody. Also, he accuses Dana of lying about that entire situation. He's like,
Yep.
"I don't think I believe you. I'd forgive you." And I'm like, "Dude,
Yeah.
like
No, I
if
totally love going and having sex. Let's say he didn't rape her, right? Let's
yeah.
say he didn't rape her. And this is what I'm talking about some fucking man logic, right?
Mhm,
If let's say he doesn't rape her,
mhm.
can I ask you what number of women do you think in this world are trying to fucking Ghislaine Maxwell the situation where they're like, it's fine that you rape everyone else, just don't rape me and I'll still
Yeah.
sleep with you. What?
No. No,
What?
no one would
What?
do that.
Let me find out someone I love is a rapist. They will never see my face again. They'll
They
never
would
see
see
me
the
again.
cops, and
They could
that's
have
it.
never touched me,
Mhm.
ever put a hand on me. They're still gonna meet the inside of a cell, okay? Like,
Yeah.
that's just the way it's going. Like, that's it. That's just the way it's going, man.
Mhm.
That's it, right? And he's like, well, maybe he's not all bad. Maybe there is something that you can do that'll make you kill him. Never mind that she's already explained that she didn't kill him because she didn't want people to get split up and for these families to fucking get messed with.
Yeah.
Like, in one ear and out the other. Like, he's not even listening to the argument.
I know. I really think he just wants her to stop going back in time, and he doesn't actually care about what she's going through.
Listen, please stop going back in time to a place where like you're literally on the menu for anybody
Yeah.
walking down the street. Like, please stop going back there. Could you try? And she's
Yeah.
like,
She's like, "Yeah, I'd love to." Like, this is a joy that I have is going back to the antebellum South where I have no rights. I actually really love this. Thank you.
I don't. I don't. And then she tells him, I'm not somebody's property. I'm
Mhm.
not there for someone to order me around. Like, I don't understand. Like,
Mhm.
you know, like Rufus has to accept the limits of our relationship, just like I have to accept the limits of my relationship with Rufus.
Mhm.
And, he has to make my life look better than just like living or dying if I do go back there. Like, that's
Yeah.
her plan, right? Now Rufus knows that she's not above taking her own life. Like, he
Mhm.
knows that she's not above like something extreme. And he doesn't want to be left alone. Like, he doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, even
Mhm.
just his relationship with with Alice depends upon Dana's like, being there to kind of like facilitate that and smooth that and like be, Alice's outcry witness,
Mhm.
basically, and also be there to kind of caution Rufus to be nice to her. Like,
Mhm.
there's a delicate balance that she maintains on that plantation when she goes back in time, right? Like, she's
Yeah.
there to do something, and her husband does not understand that. He does not see that. And then he like gets snarky and is like, living needs to be better than killing and dying. If your black ancestors had felt that way, you wouldn't be here because he knows they would have
Mhm.
killed themselves.
Yeah.
They would have killed themselves if they weren't like, you know what, there has to be more than life than this. I have to hang on for my children. Maybe
Mhm.
we can make something happen. Maybe there's hope, right? Hope and
Mhm.
resilience are two things that I absolutely love about my culture, right?
Mhm.
Like, every single day we have to wake up with an extra 3,000 pounds of baggage and
Mhm.
like live our lives like regular normal people who don't have as much baggage, right? Like,
Yeah.
every single day I could be having a really amazing day
Mhm.
and still get passed up for a promotion where my white counterpart or my white appearing counterpart gets promoted, right? And then I just sit there with that for the rest of my day and
Mhm.
I have to think about it. And it's more than, oh, I didn't do the work to get promoted. It's, I've done everything that I could possibly do and I still haven't gotten it, right?
Mhm.
What could be the reason? And
Mhm.
then the reason gets filled when you take a look at everybody else that got the promotion, right? So,
Yep.
like, that's not something I want to think about. It's something that happens to me, right?
Mhm.
I have to kind of just deal with that. And there's a lot of just dealing with that black people do in this world.
Mhm.
And it's not something that you really get credit for. No one is ever like, oh, good on you for, still being this good at whatever it is you're trying to do, right? I look at Oprah. Oprah is somebody that I think like everybody kind of takes for granted, like how rich and famous she is because she's like a mogul. She's a huge conglomerate.
Mhm.
She's a huge name. Like, she's affected millions, if not billions of people's lives, right? Like,
Mhm.
she's huge, right? I don't think anyone's ever going to come as close to her as far as like what she's done in her lifetime.
Mhm.
But again, like, that's without recognizing the fact that she is a multiple time sexual assault survivor, that she didn't have a traditional family,
Mm-hmm.
that she literally came from the ground up. Who knows what she had to do to succeed?
Yeah.
Who knows the moments that like Oprah dreams about when she has nightmares and like, oh my God, that was a really horrible time in my life. Like, we don't know that. We're not privy to that. And
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't really share it. You know what I mean? So like, there's always like the other shoe, I think, for people. And Kevin is just talking to her like there's no other shoe. Like the choice is clear. Like it's black and white, even though he himself has already been negatively affected by the randomness
Mm-hmm.
of this entire process. And like that takes some like real special privilege to be able to do. You have experienced this other person's pain and trauma and anguish.
Mm-hmm.
And even though that person is someone that you say that you are in love with, it has still not changed you enough
Mm-hmm.
to just go, what do you need? Like he's saying so much. Why does
Yep.
this man have so much to say to her? Like, why does he have
I
so
don't
much
know.
to say?
I don't know.
I mean, my partner is white. If he came home, right, from being in the past, or like I have a friend that's Jewish, if she came home from being in the past and they made her go back to the Holocaust or the pogroms, right,
Mm-hmm.
in Russia or whatever, if that's what happened to my partner, I'd
Mm-hmm.
be like, time out.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do for you? Because
Yeah.
that's a living nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so sorry that happened to you. How can I fix this? I know I can't do anything about it. It doesn't seem like you can control it. What can I do?
Yeah. What do you
Like
need? You
it's
know?
just nuts that this dude is like, I need you to answer my questions so that I can feel better in
Literally.
these 15 days that we may or may not have together.
My
Like,
favorite thing though is the middle of this fight, she gets sent back.
I
Like
can't.
it was even the universe is like, all right, Kevin, time
Like
out.
I can't. Especially because you know it's a long-term fight. Like she's there for 15 days
Mm-hmm.
and we get what? Let's see. I'm gonna look in the book so I'm precise.
Mm-hmm.
6 pages.
Yeah.
We get 6 pages before
Mm-hmm.
she gets sent back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 6 pages. Maybe 10. Okay? Maybe 10. Between 6 and 10 pages is
Mm-hmm.
what you get before she is sent back in time. They're trying to have a party. She apparently acquiesces to allowing people at her house that are people that she does not know very well.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it happens after they leave. And it's the 4th of July. So she's just like trying to chill and enjoy America's independence. And it's like nothing says independence like slavery.
And then he gets like mad at her because she doesn't want to go to like what was it, like a football game or something?
Oh no, so it was a football stadium to go watch fireworks.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? She would have been in the car if she had listened to that idiot.
Yeah.
She would have been driving at like 50 miles an hour
Yeah.
on a California freeway to get to a stadium when she flashed back in time.
Literally. And it's like, what? And he has no idea because she doesn't always end up in the same exact spot.
Right.
Like she could have gotten hit by a car. She could have died.
Yeah, she could have wound up on the freeway
Yeah.
when she came back. But that's what I'm saying. It's just a general lack of care. Like he puts himself first all the time.
Yeah.
Like all the time. It's his friends that are coming over, not people that are going to make her feel safe and more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, and even then, like he's complaining as she disappears into the past. We can't stay cooped up in this house any longer. And Dana's like, goodbye.
Listen, if that happened to my partner, I'd be like, we're ordering Uber Eats. Like, I'm gonna get the premium subscription at this point.
That's right.
Like, I guess I'll Instacart it. Like, we're gonna hunker down and we'll figure out what's going on.
1976, call the little neighbor boy from across the street and have him go to the convenience store. Even that is a possible solution to this problem. Like, this guy is just reckless.
I know.
And even then, she barely gets to her bag.
Yeah.
She barely gets to her bag. And like, foreshadowing, that's going to be important. Like, that she, thankfully, has her bag.
Literally.
Just going to put that there. Because I put a little, like, piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
When I read that she almost didn't get her bag, I was like, that might be important. So I put a little piece of, whenever there's like something that I'm like, is that going to come back up? I put a little piece of paper and then I keep reading so that I can go back and be like, aha!
Yeah.
So that was one of those moments for me.
I know. I was really nervous about that. And then like, also I was just kind of thinking about like, while this was happening, about how everyone always says like, I need a go bag in case like of natural disasters. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I've lived like 23 years on this world and I've always been like, no, but like I'm reading this and I'm like, maybe I should. Or like, did you see recently how people got stuck on that highway for like 24 hours? Yeah, this lady was talking about how she always has a go bag in her car of things, and I'm like, I was like, no, that's stupid. And now I'm like, ew.
Not gonna lie. Have thought about it.
Yeah.
Think I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. I don't know. This book is like really raising a lot of alarms for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Especially because it's so old,
Yeah.
right? Like it's old. So we're reading this book about like a modern woman in 1976, right?
Mhm.
And we've already like come leaps and bounds, just like by the time we were born and on this earth, we had already
Mhm.
come leaps and bounds from there, right? Let alone now that we are both adult women.
Yeah.
So like we're reading this as modern women, and this lady wrote it as a modern woman about a
Mhm.
modern woman even before this was published, right? So it's like these layers of history, right, that we're
Mhm.
getting, even though this is supposed to be a modern account. And like it is shocking how little has changed. Like
Mhm.
that's the one thing that I think that this book has made me feel, because again, I read this book in college. That was, I mean, literally 20 years ago. I read this book 20 years ago,
Mhm.
and I have a very similar understanding, if not a better one, because I'm older now, right? Like I think that I think I was much softer with
Mhm.
Kevin when I was 20 reading this book. I was very like, oh, well, extenuating circumstances, and he doesn't know, and he's new to all this, and maybe they didn't teach him right. But
Mhm.
now I'm an adult, and I'm like, he's got books all over his goddamn house. He's a writer. There is no excuse for this.
I
There's no
guess
excuse for this trash.
I feel like I didn't ever like as an adult, I didn't go through that period where I was like accepting of people's lack of knowledge anymore.
I think that that is the time, though. I think it's a
Yeah.
product of the time, right? Like you're 20 years old, you
Mhm.
meet me, I'm obviously a lot. And then you have like a horrible like racist experience like in your group, even though
Mhm.
you're not the one experiencing the racism, you're experiencing it like because somebody else like put it out there, and
Yeah.
like now you have to be like, your choice was taken away from you to like not be affected by that. And
Mhm.
like that changes somebody. There are a lot of people out there who like they don't, I mean, even other like, people of color, like
Mhm.
their experiences with racism were very basic. Like I have a friend who is Indian, right?
Mhm.
She is of Indian descent, South Asian. And she remembered growing up, people would like say terrible things about her. She looked like ET because like her skin was brown and she was small or whatever. They'd say like shitty things, right? And
Yeah.
shitty things, they suck and they can make you feel away. But then when you grow up, like the insults get deeper, right? The
Mhm.
stereotypes get more complex. Then there's like all these other like elements to it that you're like, wait a minute, what? Right? So, I think that for you're growing up with TikTok, you're growing up with the internet, you're growing up with YouTube, you're growing up with like the ability to get firsthand accounts
Mhm.
from people of color in real time saying, this is what happened to me today, it sucks, right?
Yeah.
When I experience racism, if you and I talk that day, I'm like, hey, so this happened to me today and it was terrible. And you experience that with me and you get your head around it.
Mhm.
I think for some people, like I remember having a huge conversation with my roommate in college. She's Cuban but looks white, and
Mhm.
she's been raised in Miami. She was raised in Miami her whole life. She hadn't really left
Mhm.
Miami ever. And she was like, I don't think racism is a big deal. And I was like, well, first of all, you have privilege. And she's like, well, I'm not white, I'm Cuban. And I'm like, I get that.
Yeah.
But if you went to a white city, people would think that you were white. Oh,
Mhm.
no, definitely not. I look Hispanic. So fast forward 3 years, she goes away to try to interview for the Peace Corps in Atlanta, Georgia. She landed on the plane, got off the plane, walked outside, took a bus to like the corner, by where she was looking for this place to have her interview.
Mhm.
And while there, she asked someone for like the time of day, like a black man for the time of day,
Mhm.
because I think her cell phone was like in her bag, something. And a white man in a gigantic Confederate flag shirt told her not to ask that N word anything. It's not safe for sweet young white girls around these parts. And like, I got a phone call.
Yeah.
She like put all her stuff down, searched for her phone in her bag, and
Yeah.
was like, I don't think I'm safe here. I think I'm scared. And I was like, you have every right to be scared right
Mhm.
now. Proceed with caution.
Yeah.
Only talk to people of color because you don't know if the white people are safe.
Yeah.
If they find out that you are not a white person, she's like, that's the thing I'm scared of the most. If they think I'm white and they're saying racist things to me because they think I'm white, what happens if they detect an accent? What
Mhm.
happens if they look a little too closely at like my hair color? Because she
Mhm.
had like ginger hair, but it was thicker,
Yeah.
like not like silky like white hair. It was like thicker hair. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
She's like, what happens if somebody like notices that I'm a little different? So then all of a sudden she was paranoid. She was like, what do I do? Like, I've never been in this situation before. So I think for a lot of people, until they experience it, it's hard for them to like recognize it. But someone like you who's kind of grown up,
Mm-hmm.
seeking that yourself, right? Seeking
Yeah.
the testimony of other people and talking to people about their experiences. You've never experienced that. Oh, I don't believe that that's right. Are you sure it was racism? Like
Yeah.
you've never had a moment like that to have. And I think that that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome, because Kevin Franklin is exactly why it is important that you learn from other people's experiences and not just your own. Like, it's his wife
Mm-hmm.
and he still doesn't get it.
Yeah, see, like, I remember in high school thinking it was, like, mostly just, like, shitty small towns, and then,
Right.
like, I was like, there's still racism, but it's just, like, the garbage holes of the United States, and then
Right.
I was like I went to college, and I'm like, "Oh, no, it is
It's
everywhere."
everywhere.
I was like, "No," I thought, maybe it's just, like, the trash areas, like,
Yeah.
places
No.
nobody wants to go anyways, like,
No.
all white towns, no one wants to go there.
Well, I mean, it's almost like, and not to name the book, but like it's almost like
Mhm,
the darkness in someone's heart, right?
mhm.
Like, I've been in situations before where somebody that I thought was my friend has called someone else the N-word in front of me. Like they forget that you're black
Uh,
because you're their friend and you're different, right? You're not one of them. You're
uh,
you. Like, that has happened to me,
uh,
and that is horrible, because then you have to have a conversation about, well, I'm black, and they're like, yeah, but not like that. You're a good driver. Not like that. You're not lazy. Not like that. You don't
uh,
eat watermelon. Not like that. Like, you know what I mean? And that gives you your own complex, because then you're like, okay, so now a white person is judging how black I am based
mhm.
on stereotypes that they think are absolutely true, or they wouldn't be using them to categorize me differently, right? So like, then now you know too much about your friend in a bad way, and you think about all the times that maybe they've said things that were a little strange, and you
Yeah.
excuse it because they couldn't possibly be racist. They're your best friend. um Thankfully it was long ago, but like, that was a weird ass day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a weird day. And I feel like that's kind of what Dana is going through, but because it's 1976, and because like the Black Panther movement is still happening. You know what I
Mhm,
mean? Like, we're still fresh off civil rights. Like, Monday is Martin Luther King Day, as of
mhm.
this recording. And, he had only been dead, I mean, not even a decade yet in 1976, I don't think. So,
I think he
like,
died in 68.
yeah, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you've got a lot that's still happening, and like, yeah, that stuff's behind them. I'd
Mhm,
say that in quotation marks. A lot has been behind them because Jim Crow is technically over in most places, but like
mhm,
some places in the north, like Dayton, Ohio resisted segregation until the 80s.
mhm.
You know what I mean? So like, it's not even like it's just in the south, or it's just in small cities. And it can be very complex finding that out as a black person, but it can be even more complex finding that out as a white person. Like, I've had plenty of my friends, especially since George Floyd was murdered, write me notes on Facebook like, hey man, so remember that time I told you that what you experienced wasn't real? I'm pretty sure that was actually really racist. And I should have listened to you, because you
Mhm.
definitely experienced racism. And I told you that you were being too sensitive. And that was a really fucked up thing to say. Like, I can't tell you, the last 2-3 years, I've had so many people just be like, so I'm reassessing my entire life.
Yeah.
And I am leafing through every receipt that I can find. And
Mhm.
I have fucked up. You know what I mean? And like, that means something to me. But then
Yeah.
there's people like Kevin Franklin that are just like, well, why can't you just move on?
I know.
Like it's not going to happen again if I forget about it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I
Totally
mean? Like,
not. How could it, right?
isn't it better to be prepared?
Yeah.
I
I
don't know.
just I hate Kevin so much.
He's terrible. Like, he's the worst. And like, in the afterword, right, in the little essay at the end,
Mhm,
like, we can talk about that later if you want to, but
mhm,
like, there's a little note from Octavia Butler, right?
mhm,
She purposely makes Kevin that way because she recognized that that's a real. So basically, Dana, Kevin's ignorance and his
mhm,
presence in the story is there to just throw a bigger wrench into her plans, right?
mhm,
To show how like your everyday life can also kind of impact how
mhm,
you deal with and how you heal from the past,
mhm,
and how it very much colors how you feel, right? So the role of Kevin in this book is designed to be like another, obstacle for Dana,
mhm,
which she unquestionably is. Because now, not only is she questioning what's happening to her, why it's happening to her, how it's happening to her,
mhm,
what she can do to stop it, or what she can do to change it, right? All of that is like a monstrous sized plate, right? That's a
mhm.
monstrous sized plate for one person to handle mentally. And now on top of that, you also have to think, what does my husband think of me? How is he feeling? What does he expect of me? How does he, want me to be? Versus how am I feeling naturally because I'm still processing this trauma. 15 days is not long enough to process having tried to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Under normal circumstances, let alone circumstances where you are being mystically traveled back in time to fucking the antebellum South. You know what I mean?
I know.
Like on a good day, which obviously no day where you try to kill yourself is a good day, but like on a normal, regular day, you give that person more than 15 days to heal.
Yeah.
And you don't say, what the hell were you thinking? Like, that's not what you do, man. Like,
literally.
He just doesn't care. Like, he doesn't care. And like, I have such a problem with the fact that he just doesn't, he just wants to move on. Like, this isn't going to affect him later. Like, in 100 years, he's just going to be like, shrug, it happened one time. He's not even still living it. Like, the things that are frustrating him are like mechanical. Oh, I don't know how to drive my car. I don't know where the spoons are. He's not like waking up in a cold sweat because he watched a woman get beaten to death.
I know. And he's like, I saw someone give birth once.
Yeah, while they were strung up by their wrists and being beaten until they had the baby.
Like, yeah, that's
and
traumatizing.
He's fine after that.
But like, also, imagine your wife who has to live with the idea that could have been her.
Yeah. Like, how do you not? It makes me wonder how he sees Dana. That he doesn't think that could have been my wife.
Literally. Like, yeah, it's traumatizing to see that, but imagine how much more traumatizing it is to know that like that could have been you. Like, it's like watching a movie or knowing that you could have been in the movie. Like, this movie could have been about you.
Yeah. And that's a very different sentiment. And that's what I'm saying about their relationship. Like, Dana goes back in time with this bad taste in her mouth about her man, which like is probably the absolute worst way. But he's not thinking about how she sees him. He's only thinking about how he sees her. And I think that it is beyond a mistake. Like, beyond a mistake on his part to not like slow his roll for a second.
Literally.
And like really try to just be there for her. Because he gives her like no reason to come back. Like, I would say that the end of this book is 110% her running on her own steam and finally just giving a fuck about herself and her people for once.
Yep.
And it takes so much time for that resilience to happen because she's so busy dealing with his bullshit.
I know. All I was thinking about right now, though, is like the amount of times in this episode alone, I've said I fucking hate Kevin. What do my upstairs neighbors think of me? Who do they think Kevin is?
Hopefully none of them are named Kevin.
I know. I'm just thinking about it because I can hear them moving around up there. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, they must be like, wow, I don't know who Kevin is or what he did.
Do you have him duct taped in your bathroom?
Yeah. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Barely Bookish podcast. If you want to find me, I am at Barely Bookish on everything. And if you want to find Candace, they are at Candace the Magnificent on also pretty much everything. They're on Twitch, they're on Instagram, they're on YouTube. They do a lot of cool ice cream review things. So please go check out Candace. Also, big shout out to Nova, our newest Patreon member. If you want to join the Patreon, please consider going to patreon.com/barelybookish. You get access to exclusive bonus episodes. So that's every single month you get a new episode just over on Patreon, and then you get early access to every other episode. So you get them on Monday instead of Wednesday, which is a whole lot of fun. It is Camp NaNoWriMo. So if you want to see me writing and doing all that kind of fun stuff, I am on twitch.tv/barelybookish. I got a lot of writing content I'm working on. So coming out with me, we're going to write and we're going to make these books happen. Okay? We're going to make them happen. But I will catch you guys next week with even more Kindred. I'm guessing it'll probably be about 2 episodes left. And then we are going to do Peter Pan, the original Peter Pan. So that's going to be pretty exciting, and I'm very hyped to talk about that. So I hope you guys enjoy it. If you want to read Peter Pan in prep, please do. It's not very long, so or maybe watch the Disney movie. We'll talk about the Disney movie a little bit throughout the episodes. But I will catch you guys next week. Our logo was designed by my little sibling Sarah. Our theme song was by Raphael Crux on freepd.com. And I'll catch you guys later. Bye!